All right, it's now 26 minutes to 8 o'clock, and this is Morning Express. We are reviewing the week, and just a quick reintroduction of who we have in studio. We have Dr. Lutalala Muhwana, we have Kevin Osido, and Dr. Regina Kitiabi, basically looking at some of the events that have taken over the week. But just before we took the break, we were looking at the harsh economic times that Kenyans should expect, given that the price of unga has already doubled just by expiry of the government subsidy, which expired on the 31st of December 2017. So we already have new prices. We also have Kenya Power basically saying that they need to recover 10.1 billion shillings, and that's in the news today. But we also have the education sector, which has had, let's just say there's been a very active conversation in regards to the curriculum. And I'll start with you, Dr. Alutalala, because I know that you love education. And looking at the curriculum that we are currently now introducing, we have some of the stakeholders a little bit jittery about their preparation. For instance, we have some of the teachers saying they're not prepared for the new curriculum. Is that another disaster that we are staring and waiting for it to hit us at the point where now we again say we've rolled out an education system where implementers themselves are not prepared?
Maybe, but let's be a bit optimistic on this one.
I like your optimism.
It's a new year, Michael. In my other life, Michael, I had the privilege to interact with the two foreign curricula, the IGCSE Cambridge system and the London GCE system. And when I look at what the government has proposed, it seems to be a hybrid of both. Because they are now saying we'll begin with the first grade, which is 2, then they're talking of 6, which will be junior grade, then they're talking of 3, and then 3. And they're calling it competency-based education, competency-based curriculum. This is a loud-sounding something. Indeed it is. And if politics be put aside, it ought to lead to a drastic and fruitful change in our curriculum and our education. But that may be where it stops, because I'm also reminded of the entry of 844 by Baba Moi, and it was similarly loud-sounding something, in the sense that the reason why they increased the 8th year from standard 7 to 8, hence the name 844, was that at the age when the kids were finishing class 7, they were a bit too immature to drop out and start vocational courses. Correct. So the argument was increased by 1 year, so we call it number 8, so that at that level, if there's an attrition, those children who drop off at that point are mature enough, and the skills that would have acquired along the way would be useful in them doing other chores, for example, masonry, building, and so forth. And so when the 844 system came, which again was really criticized, similar to what is happening now, the argument was that the system then, our system then, was too theoretical. So they needed to have a hands-on education. When they talk about competence-based, basically they're saying they want a hands-on, a practical education where each child is rewarded according to their uniqueness in the education. So that if a child is very good in football, and when he goes to class he dozes off, that child must be streamlined towards that direction. Very wonderful. However, what befell 844 seems to be the same calamity that might befall the system. Number one, lack of preparedness. It cannot be that the very people who are supposed to be shepherding this new curriculum are the ones complaining that we have not been involved long enough. I hear Secretary General of NAT, Mheshimiwa Sosion, lamenting until yesterday when he was saying, now I think with what has been put in place, it looks like. I really hope also he does not behave like the other brothers we've seen in police last year who complained all along that things were not okay, but the last minute they came up and said, now I think we can manage. Because the teachers are saying they have not been well prepared. 170,000 teachers, according to Honorable Matiang'i, have been trained. But why are the same teachers saying they are inadequately trained? Please listen to them. They're the ones going to deliver, not Honorable Matiang'i, not myself. So my fear is, could there be a political dimension again? Why is it being pushed even when the cries out there for the stakeholders are that they are not fully prepared? In August, there's a proposal that there be a national conference to discuss the merits of this system. I thought that's putting the cat before the horse. Shouldn't that have come as a preparatory stage? And finally, Michael, so that I give my other colleagues a chance, when it comes to the implementation, do we have resources for this implementation? For instance, my son who is in class 7, who emerges to be a Mariga, we are saying he'll be given an opportunity. Do we have sporting facilities across the country?
Definitely.
The laptops are not enough in the countries. The steamer is not enough. This last mile project that we've been told, Michael, is not everywhere. So the question is, are we ready for the implementation? The idea is lofty, it's a loud sounding something. But will it work? So I hope it doesn't end up being a loud sounding nothing, like Winston Churchill described it.
Dr. Kintiabi, your thoughts on the current status we have with our education system and the new curriculum?
Kitonga, I think, coming from a university background, and also having gone to some of the best schools in this country, I have no idea why we changed the system. I really...
to 844, yes, or why we are changing now again?
Leave alone now. I really have no idea why we changed the system. Because let's just do a pick, yeah? The people who are good now, who are very good now, the Alutalalas, the Kalistas Juma, all those people are in that system of Form 6. If we were listening to the court sessions, the brilliant lawyers who are there, most of them were not 844.
But they say that education is dynamic. It changes with the time.
No. The British system, you see, what happens to an educational system is that you beef it up. You change things that make it better. You don't change a whole education system, and yet you are not rich. Your GDP is what? Right now, what is the GDP of Kenya?
So are you saying...
You cannot overhaul a system. What are these people talking about? I don't understand what they're talking about. Because you cannot overhaul a whole system, as he says, then you now begin from scratch, the way we did with 844, and now we are beginning to do with this one. My understanding of changing a system is that it should have been from a pilot project, which starts from down, so that you leave these other people to face out. So you you do a pilot project and see whether it works and what are the needs of that project. Now the problem is, maybe the communicators are not telling us that that's what they have done. But the people communicating, and the only person I've seen communicating
is Dr. Matiang'i.
Is Matiang'i. And then the other day, I think he put some lady there, ambushed her to say something, when she seems to be the technical person. I think the problem is how we do things. And this chest thumping, wanting to do something so that you can be seen to be working.
You're working hard.
Yes, the way it is right now. So as far
as you're concerned, the education system does not need a change?
No, what we need to do is improve our infrastructure in the education system and then improve the things that are wrong. And as I've said during the break, I have never seen a country which is poor like ours, yeah? Then you are trying to, first of all, what is the amount of money we put in education? Very little, just like in agriculture. And then now you are trying to do two main things
at the same time.
You are trying to change the system so that we go back to when people used to get proper A's and proper B's. And then at the same time, you are trying to change the system. Which one is more important? All
right, let me hear from Kevin Osido before we move on to the next thing.
Michael and colleagues, there's a big problem. And this problem is one that I don't think Dr. Matiang'i alone will sort out. Because look at it this way. I've taken time to look at the documents that Dr. Matiang'i was showing us on TV. And I have to commend the team that took their time to do the research. Very well documented, very exciting figures. But I have asked a number of people, including one of the trainers who is apparently involved in training the 170,000 teachers. What is the level of the teacher who teaches in not only the rollout, but in the research aspect of whatever we are trying to do? And it is really minimal. Second thing is, look at the time of the rollout. Schools are just opening. These kids and schools have been closed for more than 2.5 months. We have results that just came out. Matiang'i is having to deal with lots of issues surrounding these results. We are talking about the fourth thing, which is the massive transfer of teachers. Dr. Matiang'i, I'm sure, is not a magician. In fact, I don't think he will have the mettle to deal with all these 4+ other issues, including his own personal issues as a person, not as a CS. As if that is not enough, this is the acting cabinet secretary in charge of interior. We have lots of deaths happening on the roads.
But Kevin, allow me to pause you, because that again speaks to the fact that, do we view Dr. Matiang'i as the person doing it? Because really, he is a mouthpiece. He is not, he may be speaking, but there are other people who are meant to be, there's meant to be systems that work.
Which is where I started, Michael, when I spoke about the research that has been done. And you look at who is doing it, and then bring in the teachers. Because that is why you are seeing people complaining and saying that we are not ready. And if you looked at even Mheshimiwa Asocion, the body language, even when the CS was speaking. So the second thing to me is that consultation towards this exercise was not effective. Because I was here on Monday, I think on Tuesday, when we spoke about the fact that the CS must consult. And we said must in capital letters. And we are glad that I think the following day, he summoned the stakeholders and they were talking. But even in the tone of the CS, you could hear him saying, we have agreed as a government, this thing is unstoppable. It has to go on. So then why did he summon or call in the stakeholders? What did the stakeholders say? What was their public participation process insofar as this system is concerned? Because then the people who are going to face the heat, Michael and all of us, are the parents who have to pay school fees. And like all of us have said, even infrastructure to be able to roll out this. The computers have never been enough, even after they were promised 5 years down the line. We saw pupils doing examinations under trees. There was a very nice documentary by KTN here, I think 4 days ago, of schools in Baringo, where teachers have had to even volunteer iron sheets to put on top of trees for kids to be able, it is something that I think the government needs to really think about infrastructure, even before we begin to think about the software bit of this. The hardware, I think, needs to be.
All right, we are running out of time, and I want us to still look at matters politics, and maybe let's finish with NASA swearing in, which is still on for this month. Is this something that maybe Jubilee should be looking at and wondering, what is going on? And maybe let me start with you, Dr. Kitiabi, on this. Your thoughts on this?
Thank you for starting.
Gitonga, for me, I'm not one of those people who is scared of tear gas, because I went to Nairobi University, and I've been tear gassed many times, for changes to be made. So frankly, from a personal point of view, I think they should go ahead and swear him in. Then we deal with it. For me, from a personal point of view, I think that is okay. But
what value does it have?
From a professional point of view,
from your point of view, in terms of they should go ahead and deal with it, what value does it add? How does that help?
Well, actually, it changes a lot of things, because Kitonga, last time I was there, I said the problem with us Kenyans is that we forget one thing and put it under the dirty carpet, and then we think we can actually move on. No, we can't. You see, the problem, if they swear him in, then we'll now address the issues of electoral reforms. We will, and by the way, I can assure you that once he does that threat, the other side will be talking, will be ready to talk. Yes, and for me as a Kenyan, I think that's a good thing. Yeah. The downside, though, is if they swear him in and then the other side is unwilling to talk, then we are going to really have problems.
And with the swearing in, before I come to Dr. Mukhwana, where are you on the legality of it?
Yeah,
the law.
The law. I don't know about the law, but the new constitution I don't think that the new constitution says you can be hanged. If you,
It doesn't say you can be hanged,
it doesn't say that.
But it makes it
No,
very
it
clear that we
doesn't
only
say-
have one president.
No, no.
It's already been sworn
Yes,
in
but the
as per
constitution
the
doesn't say
Constitution.
that if Dr. Kitiabi goes and swears herself in, which, by the way, I don't understand how that becomes illegal. Because if I swear myself in, really...
And that's
you
the
know,
whole point, Dr.
first
Kitiabi.
of
When you
all-
swear yourself in, really, what value does that add? What value does it have? Because how have you sworn yourself in?
I'm just an
Under what
innovative
authority?
person. I'm just an innovative person, and I want to attract people to come and discuss something for change.
So it's a rallying call.
It's a rallying call. Okay. And I think from that point of view, people should not be afraid of it. And by the way, if I was listening right, I thought that the big judges said recently that hakuna kuhang mutu. Yeah, they said recently.
Yes.
So the hanging issue, whether it is,
Well, I think the hanging issue is coming in
General
because of
thinks
treason,
that
but
he can...
again, that's another whole
Well,
story.
they just said there's no more hanging.
Correct.
But the point I was making, I think let the viewers not mistake what I was saying. I was saying from a personal point of view, I think that it will take us to the next stage for us to discuss conversation about electoral reforms. But from a professional point of view, I think that the president should really reach out so that we don't really go to the situation. Yes, so that we don't get there. Because if we get there, it's going to be more difficult for him. Just as he's saying, you are adding too many problems onto your tray, and you have so many other big problems.
All right, Dr. Mkhwana.
Michael, I was hoping that today I'll not be called upon to talk about politics, because that is what we did most of the year.
It's one of the things that we cannot ignore that's happening in the country right now.
But now that it is here, I want to say this. Let us not dwell so much on the legality or illegality of the swearing ceremony. The issue of the law has been settled. And I've said it as much. What hasn't been settled is the issue of legitimacy. Swearing in of Honorable Raila will be contrary to the legality. That is settled. We need not spend time there. But swearing in of Honorable Raila will be a political statement that would aggravate the troubles of the Jubilee government. To be frank with you, there are huge governance issues that Jubilee needs space and time to handle. We have just talked about a few of them. When Honorable Raila goes ahead and swears himself in, or whether he'll be sworn in by a judge, I don't know who, or by a high court advocate, the significance of that is not to be found in its legality. The significance of that is to be found in legitimacy, most especially the political statement that that will be making. My greatest fear, Michael, is that when the president was not yet in office, his team demonstrated that they can actually operate outside the law and clamp down on the opposition. And we saw the deaths. Now that he's in, and at that time he was saying, I'm willing to talk, but after the election. Now that he's in, he's saying, forget it. I'm not willing to talk, wait for William Ruto and negotiate in 2022. That is where my fear is, because now that he's in government, he will not budge. Honorable Raila Odinga will not budge, because when he called off the swearing ceremony, there was an outcry from his followers. So he will have to go ahead with the swearing ceremony because he has to assuage his followers. He has a constituency he appeals to, and his life in politics is not out. Let's not think that Raila will not be around in 2022. So he has to do something. And that might be the swearing-in ceremony. My fear is, Michael, that when that happens, there will not just be conflict. There can be a blood flow. And that is not good for our country.
All right, Kevin Osido, we are running out of time. Your comments on that, very briefly.
Let Raila Odinga, Right Honorable, be sworn in. Let's test the systems, the structures, our judiciary. Let's look at where the convoy will head after the swearing in. Is it going to Bondo? Is it going to Karen? Is it going to State House? Because failure to do that, and I have said here in the past that NASA's Canaan is real. And it is real if the following are not done. Just last evening, coast governors and other leaders were saying we are ready for secession. The government must be willing, and His Excellency the President must be ready to really want to have discussions around secession so that he can tell us about what his legacy will look like. Mike, almost half plus of this country are feeling part of it. And we have said here and in other platforms in the past that the presidency presents a symbol of unity for this country. The president should be willing to provide amicable foundations and platforms and opportunities for the so many people who feel he is not our president. I think we've just talked about the issue of legitimacy a short while ago, because failure to do that, we are going to continue seeing these street demos. And we've also talked about the effects of demos to the economy, to just the normal cohesion integration of Kenyans, and what that means for us as one people. The third thing, Michael, is national dialogue. And this dialogue, in my view, really needs to take place. Whether it is going to be structured in county forms, whether it is going to be structured in regional forms, so that you allow people to ventilate, you allow people to speak out, you allow people to have an anchorage of their feelings. Because failure to do that...
I have to cut you short because we're really out of time. And, well, that is basically the week that has been. Thank you so much, Dr. Lutalala Mukhwana, Dr. Kitiabi, and Kevin Osido for joining us this morning on the week that has been. And that's what we're going to be looking forward to. So far, it is now 5 minutes to 8. This is the time we say goodbye to KTN Home. And for those of us on KTN News, do stay with us. We've got more news updates.